Welcome to our webinar today. And we are very happy to have our distinguished guests here today. And they're from Hong Kong and from California. 歡迎各位參加我哋今日嘅講座。咁我哋今日咧係有兩位好優秀嘅演講者嚟同我哋做呢個講座嘅。咁我哋今日做呢個咧就係呢個亞裔阿茲海默病嘅研討會嘅第二部分。咁第一部分咧就係喺上個月嘅14號做咗噶啦。咁呢個係第二部分。咁就第一部分，如果你冇睇到嘅咧，咁就係可以有個 Zoom link 係可以睇嘅。咁遲啲會話俾你哋聽下。So this is part 2 of the Asian Alzheimer's Disease Symposium. We did part 1 in July 14 last month. And for those of you who didn't see it, we can show you how to get to see it on YouTube. This symposium is a collaborative of 4 different organizations, and we are just really proud that we come together and put this on. One of it is the Asian Health Institute, and then we have the UCSF Memory and Aging Center, and then the Alzheimer's Association, as well as the Charles Kao Foundation for Alzheimer's Disease. 咁我哋係有4個不同嘅機構嚟到合作做呢個講座嘅。咁大家你睇到嗰啲名啦。3個咧就係美國嘅，2個就係其中係加州大學嘅，咁然後咧就1個就係香港嘅高錕慈善基金。咁我咧本人咧就係劉雪艷。So I am Diana Lau, and I'm the director of the Asian Health Institute. 我係加州大學舊金山分校亞裔健康研究院嘅主任。咁今日嘅兩位嘉賓咧，一位咧就係好德高望重嘅高黃美芸女士，係高錕基金會嘅主席。另外一位咧就係歐小榮博士，佢係阿茲海默症協會社區參與經理。So we have 2 distinguished panelists today. One is Mrs. Gwen Kao, chairman of the Charles Kao Foundation for Alzheimer's Disease in Hong Kong. And the second one is Xiaorong Ou, Dr. Xiaorong Ou, who is the community engagement manager of the Alzheimer's Association. So this is the agenda for today. So basically, Gwen gave her talk on about how she takes care of Professor Kao and a little bit about Alzheimer's disease. And then Xiaorong will talk about the resources that the Alzheimer's Association has for the patients and caretakers. And then we have a little Q&A session. So it's going to be very tight because everybody has a lot to talk about. So 今日咧嘅講座咧，其實係非常之好多資料嘅。一個咧就係高黃美芸女士講啦。咁佢就講佢同高錕先生點樣照顧高錕教授啦嚇。咁然後咧就歐小榮經理咧，亦都會係講呢個佢哋嗰個協會有啲咩嘢係可以幫到啲病人同埋家人嘅。So let me just briefly talk about, give a little introduction on Mrs. Gwen Kao. And along with her is the manager of the Charles Kao Foundation, Mr. T.I. Tang. So both of them are with the Charles Kao Foundation, of course. And the Charles Kao Foundation was formed in 2010 as a result of the Alzheimer's disease that Professor Kao attained. Unfortunately, it was an illness that nobody was expecting. 咁咧，我哋今日而家咧就介紹咧，就係高黃美芸主席啦，同埋鄧達業經理係呢個高錕慈善基金會嘅成員嚟嘅。咁咧就我哋叫佢高夫人嚇。高夫人咧就係當然係高錕教授嘅賢妻啦。咁咧就係遺孀啦。而家因為高錕教授已經去世咗幾年啦。咁咧佢咧就係即係高錕教授就當然係大家都知啦，亦知道佢係幾咁叻啦，同埋係對世界嘅貢獻幾大啦。但係高夫人其實就係呢個成功男人背後嗰位女士嚟嘅，因為每個成功嘅男士背後都係一位好出色嘅女士，咁佢就係呢位女士啦。咁高夫人咧，除咗係高錕嘅妻子啦，係佢嘅情人啦，係佢同事啦，亦都係一位好能幹嘅妻子， 同埋助手，同埋跟住嘅高錕先生教授係有病之後咧做咗佢嘅，好似做咗護士看護人咁樣。咁佢係一個非常之能幹嘅女士嚟嘅。咁你陣間聽佢講嘢，你就有個體會，我講嘅嘢係冇錯嘅。佢好叻嘅。我係好佩服呢位高夫人。咁咧跟住同埋佢一齊做嘢嘅咧就係鄧達業經理咧，亦都係一位非常之能幹嘅經理嚟嘅。咁咧今日咧就好在鄧達業經理咧就係同埋高夫人喺埋一齊。咁等到做呢個講座咧係可以好順利咁樣發生嘅，因為佢其實而家係喺香港高夫人同埋鄧生咧，而家兩位都係喺香港嚟嘅。咁而家喺香港係8點幾9點幾，啱啱開始9點幾，但係我哋已經走埋咗一齊成個鐘頭噶啦。所以咧，佢又要起身，又要去高夫人嗰度咧。佢今朝早佢根本琴日冇瞓到嘅，所以我哋好多謝鄧生吓。
So I'll be mostly talking in English, and TI will 講返啲中文每個 slide。到尾嗰時咧，我哋翻譯全部啲嘢簡單啲咁咧，要個 slide 咧係要個 summary 廣東話咁寫咗中文，大家識聽咯。Starting the first slide on an emotional control, you know, that's the first thing the family will notice, that their senior is sort of not in control, is angry all the time, and then he gets sort of anxious. And why is this mood change? Well, you know, Alzheimer's has now been known to start 10 to 15 years before any symptoms start. So the patient doesn't know he's got Alzheimer's, nor does the family. And his brain, all our brains have millions and millions of brain cells, so that even if 1,000 of them are damaged, it doesn't affect the person. He doesn't show any symptoms. So there's no symptoms. But surely the patient does feel some effect. He sort of can't think so fast, and he's a bit slow on grasping what other people are saying. He's got foggy thinking. The patient is fearful and is very frightened, and he will lose the control of his emotions.
腦退化患者會經常感到焦慮啦、驚恐啦，甚至有時會情緒失控嘅。
Bad memory. You know, everyone gets some bad memory when they're getting old. It's normal. Like some people get more wrinkles and white hair. Other people doesn't get much wrinkles. So it's the same with MCI, which is the medical term for loss of memory. The healthy, normal brain does slowly show aging because it starts shrinking from about the age of 40 onwards. And after 40, you all have these odd moments that you forget something and people laugh at you and say, oh, you're having a senior moment? And, you know, everyone gets it, but some people don't, of course. So what if it is early Alzheimer's symptoms? Because you all start thinking about that because we are now all aware of Alzheimer's. And the Alzheimer's patient keeps on asking the same question or request within seconds, asks it again and again. And that is not normal for a normal aging brain. Because the short-term memory, the Alzheimer's keeps on asking because the short-term memory fades very fast. They really forget they just asked. So caregivers, please do not get angry with them.
腦退化嘅患者經常喺短時間之內重複問題或者重複提問，因為佢哋嘅記性比一般人短，好多時候咧都會忘記咗佢自己問到嘅問題，所以作為照顧者要保持耐性，唔好發脾氣。
Well, you know, about 10 or, I think I've got this figure wrong, but I can't really remember. It's about 10 or 20% or so of patients with MCI, they do not necessarily get to the full-blown Alzheimer's. You know, it might just sort of be slight Alzheimer's, early Alzheimer's, and it is preventable. Remember that. It's preventable and avoidable. So how to avoid Alzheimer's?
咁點樣可以避免患上腦退化呢？
Well, has many research has gone on, very rigorous research has gone on for over 30 years now, and no cure has been found. Or why does Alzheimer's come in old age? The brain is a very complicated organ, and people are still trying to understand it. And now they say lifestyle change really will help to slow the rate of deterioration of symptoms. Hoping for a cure or a new drug, that will be years. So cut out waiting. It's easier to make this lifestyle change, and it might it does work to slow down. So cut out smoking, don't drink so much alcohol, and if you're overweight, try and cut your weight down. And daily exercises is very important. And another thing that I have learned, because I meet so many old people and Alzheimer's people with no teeth in their old age. So make sure early on you always have your teeth looked at once a year, so there's nothing going bad or needing filling. And you'll be thankful, because when you get old, you will still have your teeth. Without your teeth, you can't enjoy your food. So change your lifestyle to follow these rules. It's not a guarantee that you will not get Alzheimer's, but it will cut down the risk of getting Alzheimer's. Or if you're unlucky and you do get Alzheimer's, it will slow the progress. And you can't wait for 10 years for a cure, so do this.
其實我哋冇辦法完全避免腦退化，但係如果可以盡早做一啲預防嘅措施，可以減低風險或者延緩病情。
Eat plenty of colorful fruits. You know, a lot of fruits are red, yellow, green, very attractive, and they're all full of antioxidants. And some say Alzheimer's is a sort of inflammation in the brain. So if you eat a lot of this, it's antioxidants, and also it's good for you, your health anyway. And it's been found that eating lots of fruit and vegetables and less meat is the way to go ahead, because what is good for the heart has been found is good for the brain health also.
簡單嚟講，對心臟有益嘅嘢，對大腦都會有益處。
These things have many vitamins as well. Nuts has lots of vitamin C, and it keeps the flow of oxygen to the brain. So it's much better to snack on all these nuts, you know, peanuts, almonds, walnuts, pecan nuts, all that stuff. It's better to snack on those than potato chips and other junk food. Eating healthily makes for good gut bacteria that's in your stomach. It makes for general body health. It's important to keep your guts healthy for your digestion, and also apparently if your guts are healthy, it makes your brain healthy too. And you know, the Chinese are very clever. They knew for centuries that as walnuts looked just like brain, 2 or 3 walnuts daily must be good for the brain too. You know, you're eating something that looks like the brain. Now also, guess what? The West believes that too now.
一路以嚟，中國人都覺得合桃嘅形狀好似大腦，所以有合桃補腦呢個講法。每日食2至3粒嘅合桃，對腦部嘅健康有幫助。發展到而家，有好多外國人都相信呢個講法。
Together with lots of vegetables and all kinds of green and leafy vegetables and foods with lots of fibers, because fibers is good for digestion, and your stomach will thank you. Good gut health makes for good digestion too. And you need both more good bacteria as well as less bacteria in the tummy. And remember, you need to drink lots of water too. That helps with digestion.
要記得多啲飲水，有助幫助消化。
You know, all these things I'm telling you is good for the caregivers too. You do the same thing that you want your patient to do, and it benefits you too. Now we go into food. Well, their teeth are still good, we hope, and they can still munch. So the best thing to do with food is cook it soft and cut it up small. But please, please do not grind it into a paste. I found that that's what they did for Professor when he had to stay in hospital. And I noticed that it looks just a mess of yellow, a mess of green or orange color. They don't know what they're eating. You know, you like to see what you're eating, and you like to be able to munch it a little bit. It doesn't have to be a paste. Just cook it up soft so that he can still sort of munch a bit on it and savor the flavors. And it's good to reduce the red meats, actually, because the fats in the red meats, like beef, is not good for you. You know, you have these good fats and the bad fats, and a lot of the fats are bad fats, so you have to know which ones you should eat. You shouldn't cut it out altogether, because in older people you still need some fats. So why not try more of the soft foods like chicken, fish, tofu, and eggs? They are much more easy to digest too, and you don't have to sort of cut it up too small because it's soft in the first case.
雞肉、魚類、豆腐同埋蛋都係比較容易消化嘅食物。
As I said, the patient likes to see what he eats more. And also why it's not paste, because if you try it yourself, and either the paste is a bit dry or it's very sloppy and liquidy. In the first case, if it's dry, it sticks to his teeth and his mouth and his gums. And it makes it very hard to sort of turn it around in your mouth and swallow. And if it's too liquid, it sort of slips down when he's not expecting it to slip down in his mouth. And you know what the results of that all is? The doctor says he doesn't know how to swallow anymore. And he does, actually. I found with Professor, when they told me that the first time, I ignored them because he was eating perfectly well at home. And then he had to go in the hospital because he's running a fever. And then they start feeding this paste stuff and say, he doesn't know how to swallow. How can you swallow on one day, go in the hospital the next day, and he doesn't know how to swallow? So I'm afraid that first time I was very good. I stuck it out and I brought in the scrambled eggs and the mashed up salmon and fed him, and he recovered. In a week's time, he'd got over his fever. We were taking him home and everything. Unfortunately, the second time, he had a very high fever. He was eating perfectly well at home, but he had cut down the amount he wanted to eat. He sort of lost his appetite a bit. But he was munching and swallowing the little that we gave him quite happily. But he had bronchitis. But the day after we got him into the hospital, the next thing they say, don't feed him. And they scared me so much because they said, get your son here. He's not going to last. Well, he was there in hospital for 5 weeks before having nothing to eat. And he starved to death, I think. So, don't let them talk you into the fact that he doesn't know how to swallow. Just, be careful. And maybe, it's true that he doesn't know how to swallow. So, also, eat less processed foods. They are full of chemicals and preservatives, not good for you. And another good tip I want to give you that I learned rather late in my caring for Charles, although I did learn it in the end, is you tend to stand up next to your sitting down patient when they get to the stage when they need feeding. And if you're standing up above him, what does he have to do? He has to raise his head towards the ceiling while you put a spoonful of food in his mouth. It's like that. And it sort of either goes straight down his stomach and it makes him choke, or else, it's uncomfortable. Think about how you eat. You sit at the table and you bend your head forward and put a mouthful. It's that sort of thing. Not sort of feeding above. So please, when you're feeding your patient, sit down next to him at his own level, and you can feed him so that he does take the food normally. And while you're feeding him, sit down next to him to feed him, make jokes and small talk. He does understand it, and it makes meal times a happy, smiling time.
餵食患者嘅時候，應該坐喺患者嘅身旁，一邊同佢傾偈、講下笑，令佢享受一個愉快嘅進餐過程。
And you should exercise daily with the patient too. Unless he goes to a group therapies and things like that, where he can do it with a group. But you have time at home. Otherwise you just sit him in front of a TV, and that is very, very bad for him. Because if he just sits there, all the skills that he has, if he doesn't use them, you lose them. You've heard that saying, use them or lose them. So you should, 15 minutes every now and then is no problem as you go around the house doing whatever you normally do in housework or whatever. Put the music on and share the time doing it together. See here, you don't need to buy these weights. You can use water bottles, smaller ones if they can't lift up so far, or bigger ones if you want him to have heavier weights. I used to give him these exercises and leave him, thinking he would carry on doing them. They won't. They need company. Someone to count 1, 2, 3, and you get him to count as well, keeps his vocals working and his speech, remembers his speech, and just do it all with him and joke and talk as you're doing it. And 15 minutes, and then he can sit down and have rest, and you go off and do something. But it's a good thing to do it. And also, when he's still in bed and not got up yet in the morning, you can go in first to wake him up and do some exercises with him. Keep your fingers flexible. You can lie in the bed and say, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, count with him and get him to do that and shake it. It keeps his fingers flexible. As important, then he can pick up things, with his fingers, because he will lose that. He will get very sort of clumsy later on, and you want to preserve these skills. And doing leg exercises in bed, you can get him to raise his legs and push on his feet so that he has to push back, and he's quite safe in the bed. He's not going to fall off. Oh, of course, he maybe roll off the bed on the floor. Well, you have to be careful about that. And you can do these exercises sitting on a chair also. You know these exercises. You've done them in your younger days, with your friends and sort of exercise together. He can kick a balloon, or if he's more able, he can stand up out in the park and kick a ball. Be creative. Laugh and smile. I keep on giving these tips about laugh and smile because it's good for you. It keeps you from getting angry because it's so good for both you and the patient to have fun. It improves your immune system too, so you're healthy together if you do it together. So, and after meals, about an hour after the meals, a 15-minute walk lowers your blood pressure and it lowers the sugar in the body too. Maybe it prevents diabetes.
進餐之後60分鐘，可以同患者一齊去公園散下步15分鐘，喐動一下，有助降低血壓同埋血糖。
So changes in lifestyles for you both, starting earlier in life is best. It may help to prevent both heart and Alzheimer's problems later for you both in old age. Even as late as in midlife, better late than never.
就算係人到中年先開始改善生活習慣都冇問題。遲開始總過冇開始，比冇開始好。
Now to the home. Reduce the clutter. Do you have a desk that looks like that? He may want to find a pencil. Can he find a pencil in all that clutter? It's very confusing for him. And I know it's very hard for the very small apartments in Hong Kong. You may have 4 or 5 people living in a 1,000 square feet only, and it's hard to keep it tidy. But do we really need all the stuff we keep? Junk a lot of it. So I try to keep a tidy home, and it reduces the risks of patients bumping into things and falling. You need to sort of keep your furniture sort of out of the way of his normal walking habits in the home. This reduces his confusion to find what he wants. And the other thing you want to train your patient is that if you've been sitting in front of TV or having a rest for a long time, and he wants to stand up to take a walk, make sure that he stands up and stands for a short while. We have gravity in this world. And when you've been sitting for a long time, your blood moves in a different way to when you're standing. And in old age, the blood takes a bit longer to sort of realize, he's standing up, I've got to sort of move some more blood into his muscles. And then he starts to walk. Otherwise, he could stand up too fast and lose his balance. And that's why a lot of times seniors do sort of stumble and fall in the home and break a bone, unfortunately, because many elderlies will have osteoporosis and things like that, so their bones are a bit brittle. So always try to keep an eye on him, even in the home, exactly like you used to do for your small children, for toddlers.
要時刻留意患者，就好似我哋時時都會睇實剛剛學識行路嘅細蚊仔一樣。
Are your bathrooms all white? I bet they are. White ceilings, white floors, white walls, white toilets, white sinks, white bathtubs. In old age, you sort of lose your 3D effect, and things, the bathtub and the toilet and the sinks all fades into the general whiteness, and they can't make out where it is. So you might have men going in and thinking, this is where the toilet is, does his business sort of all on the floor, and the ladies will squat and do it all on the floor because they can't see where everything is. You can prevent this by sticking, as you see in the slide, some floral things or a big floral flower or something on the seat and things like that, so that it stands out. And then they will see where the toilet is. and things like that. And maybe it's a good idea to keep the toilet door shut. I know people like to keep it closed. They don't want to be looking at the toilet all the time. But they get confused as to which door is the toilet and which door is the bathroom. The bedroom. So in a larger house in California, especially when there's so many doors to so many different rooms, they can't remember which is the door to the toilet. And sometimes they're so urgent that they have an accident on the way. And they will get that point sooner or later. So be aware of how you can control the bladder and the bowels. And also, no loose rugs on the floor, unless you've got these good skid things underneath it so that they don't skid. But even then, they can still sort of trip on the edge. So try not to have loose rugs on the floor. And you might have a person that wants to go out all the time. Every patient who has Alzheimer's is different from every other one, I tell you, because the brain it's so massive amount of brain cells that it's all different parts that are affected. Although for most people it's the memory one part and the frontal part of the brain that starts being affected most. But anyway, it's different for everyone. And some want to go out the door, front door, and they want to sneak out. And you're in the kitchen, you need something to warn you. So stick a bell on the door, or you can usually there's a light switch right by the door for when you come in to put the light on. So it's easy to put a combination lock on the door, and that will sort of help you to know that he has gone out somewhere. And as you walk the other thing is, and as you walk, this is the slide where I'm giving you lots of tips of things that you should be aware of before it happens. Hotels and upmarket malls often have flooring in beautiful black marble, very sort of reflective. Next time you go in and walk on that floor, instead of looking about you, look at your feet, like I have been doing recently because I fell over. So I'm watching my feet. And I suddenly realized this is what he sees. If you're watching your feet, you find, ladies, you'll be amazed. You're looking straight up your own skirt. And so he sees it as a big hole. It's a little unnerving. Even I found that when I was looking at my feet. Of course, normally you're not, but he will be because he's careful about where he puts his feet. He knows that he might fall. So he might not tell you that, but suddenly he stops at the edge of the black marble floor and won't go on. And when I kept on saying, walk, come on, walk, and he doesn't want to walk. I didn't know at the time what the problem was, so I just thought, well, okay, he doesn't want to go forward, let's go backwards. But you should be aware that for some people, this is what a bigger marble floors look like. You can put a black rug in front of your door, although I don't think as a black rug is not reflective, but it might because it's black, he might still think it's a black hole, and that might be another way to stop him going out the front door. So all these things that I'm telling you is in preparation for later. If you're aware of it, then you know it's going to be coming and you can work it out. Me, at the beginning of my road, no one told me all these things. How lucky you are to be hearing it from past caregivers. They have lots of tips to give you. I had to learn as I went. And some things I wish and regret that I didn't know at the time how to handle it because I was not aware that this is what would happen. So think of these things, because when the patient has a fit in the outdoors because of being scared of big mirrors on the wall, that's another thing. If you go into some places in the lobby of these nice hotels, they like to put wall mirrors, so it sort of makes the lobby look bigger. But for a patient with Alzheimer's, he really looks at it as though it's the next room. There's another room over there, and the next room is full of people, including a reflection of himself. But he doesn't know it's him. So he looks over there and he's a bit frightened that all these strange people in another room over there, and he might wave his hands around and he might walk towards the mirror. And as far as he's concerned, there's this man walking towards him, looking threatening, and he looks as though he's about to attack him. So he gets very agitated and angry. And now when this happens, you feel embarrassed because all these other people are sort of seeing him all agitated. And that's where the myth comes from, that these elderly patients with Alzheimer's, they are very loud and shout and curse you and sort of get violent even. And it's not true. It's because there's a cause for it. So what you should do is calm him and just say, oh, let's go the other way. We don't want to look in the mirror there. And just walk away and start talking to him and things like that to calm him down. You know, one, you want to educate the public, and second, you don't want to feel embarrassed that he's doing that. They don't understand why he's doing it, and they start all these stories about old people with Alzheimer's, and they are not true. And so I spend my life telling people they're very happy people. It's you that makes them unhappy. So, you know, we have to deal with these myths and change people's thinking. Then there's another problem. Sundowning. Have you ever had, any of you had this happen to your patients? Sundowning is the time between 5 and 7 when the sun is going down and it's reaching twilight. And we're not sure why it happens to Alzheimer's patients. The medical people think maybe it's some disturbance in their internal time clock. It gets disturbed because something or other, the brain parts that sort of controls that is damaged or something. So he gets very agitated and restless at that time. So in the worst case, the patient will turn day into night and night into day. So that during the day he's sleeping all day, and then he wakes up and he's awake all night and wants to go out and do all sorts of things. And that is very, very hard on the caretaker, giver, and the family. So one of the things maybe is to draw the curtains and turn on the lights to sort of really say, oh, nighttime is coming, sort of to maybe sort of change his internal time clock slightly, and gradually it will sort of revert back to what it should be. Or you can always sort of come and take him out for a walk and say, look, there's the sun going down. It's going to be nighttime soon. Is some confusion between day and night on him. So understand all these problems I'm warning you of. Understand all such problems now before they happen, and deal with it with a smile and care.
盡早了解呢啲問題同埋解決方法，盡早準備，就可以樂觀開懷咁樣去應對。
Now there's another big problem. Some people suddenly find that their patients refuse to take a shower. They've just had a shower. They don't need a shower. They'll have a shower tomorrow, but they don't want one now, sort of thing. And this happens day after day, and you're getting a bit upset about it. But you have to think of the reasons. If they're at that stage, it's probably because they got frightened by an earlier shower. At some stage in their Alzheimer's symptoms, they get frightened by the water coming down on their head. Water is transparent. You know, you turn on the shower and suddenly it goes onto their head, and they don't know what it is. You know, something's falling, I can't see it, and it frightens them. It falls on their head, and maybe it gets into their eyes, and they got this big fright at some point, and then after that, all they remember is the fright. That, you know, you go and get him and give him a shower, he gets frightened, or something like that. You know, it could be some simple thing that started off this thing that he doesn't want to shower. If he's at that stage, I've heard stories that the caregiver learns to give him a bribe. You know, he knows that she, it's very difficult, they like certain things as treats. Maybe it's a chocolate ice cream. So you sort of get out stories that let's have a shower together. I've just had mine. See, look how nice I look. Now you get a shower and put on something nice, and we go out to this nice place and we sit and have some chocolate ice cream. Would you like that? And, you know, maybe he's tempted enough to say, okay, and it might take a while, you know, not that might not work the first time, you have to work at it. But gradually you can sort of get him sort of over his fright and explain the water. Be careful that next time you give him a shower, that you don't let the shower go on his head first. Start with the handheld shower and work from his feet upwards. But if he's not got to that stage yet and he's still been taking showers by himself, and as you know, he likes to be in the shower by himself, everyone does, and just be prepared that he has to get used to someone coming into the bathroom with him. Because people like privacy in the bathroom. You go to the toilet on your own, you have a shower on your own, you don't want people coming in. And he's at that stage still, then get used to you going in. But remember to knock on the door. Now be respectful. Knock on the door and ask him, can I come in? I need to get something, whatever. I need my whatever. So he'll probably say, okay, you know, and next time you go in a bit longer and say, how are you doing? And so it goes, you know, next time you go in, shall I come and help you? And you just work it up to it so that by the time he's used to you being in the bathroom, and by the time he's getting afraid of the shower and not coping so well, you can start washing his back and all sorts of things, and he's not so modest about someone being in the bathroom with him all the time. So these are things you have to do before it gets to the stage of being difficult. I've warned you about the showers, so just start now being creative. Think of how to cope with it. You know your patient best. You know his likes and his dislikes, and so just go in there being cheerful and smiling, and it will work, I bet you.
發揮你嘅創意，因為你係最清楚患者中意啲乜嘢同埋唔中意乜嘢嘅人。有一點好重要嘅就係你要時刻保持心情開朗，保持笑容。
More daily activities. It's very important to socialize for yourself as well as for your patient. Socializing keeps them happy because they're hearing people talking and joking and, you know, just having a conversation, and it raises his mood. And so it's good for them to socialize. So go with him to see your friends, take him dancing. Professor used to like dancing, especially with the ladies. And I could never understand why he had this affinity for ladies. It wasn't a normal thing that, you know, men go after pretty ladies. It was just that he genuinely liked their company. And I thought about it one day, and I remembered that he didn't go to school until he was 10 years old. And he was a skinny little shrimp of a 10-year-old. And you can know what happens when you go to school at that age and not used to seeing all these kids around you. The big boys bullied him and probably sort of hit him. And the girls would come to his rescue and tell the boys off and things like that. I'm sure that's what happened. That would account for why he has this affinity for liking ladies. So he enjoys the dancing with the ladies. And quite often when I'm out with him and I'm at a meeting and I have to sort of not be sitting by his side, I get the secretary and a few other ladies to come and sit with him, and he's really happy then. He sort of doesn't mind me going off. And the next thing you'll have to be aware of is the bladder and bowel control. Sooner or later, he will lose it. You don't want him to lose it. You want him to keep it for as long as possible. And these are some of the things I suggest for you. Prune juice. Just a small glass of prune juice with a glass of water or something. First thing he gets up in the morning, it gets his stomach awake and starts it working. You can always eat the prune if he's able to chew it and enjoy it, especially if they don't have the stone in it. So that's one thing that I used to do first thing in the morning before he got up, sort of thing. And I did his leg exercises and his hands exercises, you can do all sorts of things like that before we got up. And then my routine was to give him a shower in the morning. And then when it comes to bowel control, I give him a shower, and then I stick, as you can see, it's a small bubble and it's full of salt water and a bit of glycerin. You can buy it without the glycerin as well. The product is made in Taiwan, and I can buy it at any Chinese pharmacist in Hong Kong. I don't know whether you can get it in the States, or when I wanted an enema in the States, all they gave me was a big bottle, and then you had to buy a syringe and everything else to do it. These are one use time and you throw it out, and they were quite inexpensive. But so I would sort of stick up his backside and then sit him on the toilet while I dry him and oil him. It's good to oil their legs and arms and things, because their skins get very dry in most times, especially in winter. So during that time, this thing usually takes about half an hour to work. And out comes all of the poop right in the toilet. I had him doing that for a long time before, and I don't think I did have a few accidents, but it's only towards the end when he had lost control and he was in diapers all the time that it used to be sort of messed up in the diapers. So that's the advice I give you for the daily life exercises. And also, you can take him to the toilet 2 or 3 hours after 2 or 3 hours. Take him to the toilet before you go out, and take him to the toilet when you get to wherever you go to. It's something that you did for your kids when you were training them to control their bladder. It does the same for the older people too, with Alzheimer's, to keep this routine up, and maybe they will lose their control much later before they really need diapers all day and all night. But you do want to use these modern pull-on diapers, panty diapers. That's good for men and women because they can have a slight accident every now and then. You just hope that they don't use it and you get them to the toilet in time. So all these tips are good for the caregivers to remember to do it together, and sort of some of the things you do together with your patient. And as I said, have fun with them and laugh, and please relax, and then you will be happy too and not get so stressed out.
所有呢啲小 tips 對照顧者都有幫助，同患者一齊尋找樂趣，開懷大笑，放鬆心情。
Next, we come to therapies. Therapies are good for keeping their skills, actually. It entertains them and you as well, maybe. So it preserves their skills. And especially if the therapists begin early. If you can go to painting classes early on, like you see Professor Kao, he can still copy a painting quite well. In fact, if you look at his hands, he's still holding the brush quite well. After a while, his hands are less nimble, and he just grasps it like, a small kid with a fist. And then it gets much more difficult to paint. But if you start it earlier, he can keep that skill later. I didn't start until much later for him, because no one told me about it. Didn't discover it until he was sort of in his mid stages. Still he enjoyed it, but at that stage I had to be a one-to-one, because if I went to a group class, he just sat there and watched other people painting and looked at other people's painting, but he didn't do any himself. So at that stage I was happy to find a friend who was happy to come and teach him and talk it to him, and he really enjoyed it. So an hour session once a week. So music therapies is good because you can put on some loud music and you just clap your hands to the beat of the music, or you can find a pot and a pan and anything else and just sort of hit that. It's anything that makes a sound that you can keep to the beat. It sort of keeps their brain sort of moving and listening to the beat, and he can enjoy the music. And there's other things he can do. His hobbies. Maybe he likes hobbies, working with his fingers, and then he doesn't need anyone sitting with him so much because he's concentrating on his fingers. His hands and fingers control, like jigsaw puzzles or model making. These will all slow the loss of his eye-hand skills, and he wants to keep that for as long as possible so he can feed himself and do other things like button his shirt, because, they get clumsy, his fingers, later on. So all these things, even a simple thing like helping you to do your laundry with all the socks that need pairing up, he can sit there and pair the socks up and sort of roll them in a ball. It all uses his hands and his eyes, and it really helps him. So you can sort of help him do these things. I've got which slide I'm on. Which slide am I on? And remember this, your brain is okay, and it can change your attitude. If you have a bad attitude to him, it's not good. You have to change that, and you can learn to change it. But remember that the patient can't change anything. He's losing his skills, and you will need to cope with stress. Another carer told me once that when she got really stressed out with her husband, when she talked to me, or had already passed on, she said she went out to the yard with her old plates and threw them on the ground as hard as possible. It made her feel better. What do? Well, I play tennis, so I whack the ball. Cope with stress. You can do deep breathing and meditation. Just sit there with your eyes closed and deep breathe. Just 10 minutes every so often. It helps.
面對壓力嘅時候，可以嘗試深呼吸、冥想10分鐘，可以幫助減壓。
Positive caregiving. Just your attitude. Keep learning, because, actually the patient teaches quite a lot of things because you have to learn how to deal with him. and maintain communications, you will find that he understands more than you think he understands. And I wish I'd realized that with Professor, because, I realized after he'd left me that his eyes were always so alert. If they were not so alert, then he doesn't understand. But you look at their eyes and they're alert and watching you and watching everything else, then he really does take in more than you think. So don't be angry with him and keep up a good relationship. And soon you'll find that anyway, your fake smiles are never fake anymore. Remember, white lies are not wrong. It's to comfort him and to not upset him. Maybe it's taking him 80 years from childhood to be a grown man with experiences of life. It takes about 8 to 20 years to revert backwards to babyhood. Remember how you loved and hugged small children? You had fun as well as tears? You will need to remember and to do the same for your patient with dementia. Let your eyes meet, hold their hands, hugs and smiles.
多啲同患者有眼神接觸，同佢拖手、擁抱、微笑，就好似你同小朋友相處一樣。
Love conquers all.
基金會有一個口號就係腦退化不可怕，只要愛不退化。
咁都希望咧，你哋支持我哋嘅基金會，佢哋喺香港做好多服務嘅。咁如果你要先捐啲錢俾我哋咧，你睇到嗰度啱啱嗰個 slide 咧要嘅web page。你上嗰個 web page 呢 www.charlesgallfoundation.org and it will give you information as to how you can donate. Thank you all for listening, and here are the Chinese summary of what I've been talking about, which we will leave on I think there's 2 pages, 1 page and page 2. So I hope you enjoyed the tips I gave you.
Thank you so much, Gwen and T.I. 多謝高夫人同埋鄧生嚇，咁一個好精彩嘅演講，真係喺你嘅心理路程之中係得到好多嘅啟示咯，即係一路咁掙扎，一路咁學嘢，冇人教你。Nobody tells you what to do. Nobody tells you what it means. Behavior-wise, whatever you see, you figure it out on your own. I just thought you're so smart. So I want to thank Gwen and T.I. again. So Xiaorong is Ou小榮經理 is a key staff with the Alzheimer's Association for about 10 years now. She joined in about 2012. And before that, we don't know that Xiaorong is a basic scientist. She has a PhD degree in neurosciences. So Alzheimer's disease is right in her forte. So 歐小榮博士咧，佢幫呢個阿茲海默症協會做嘢咧，真係好適合咯。因為原來佢嘅背景啊，佢係一位腦科嘅研究員嚟嘅。咁佢有個博士學位，佢初咧就喺中山大學畢業嘅，攞咗個學士。咁然後咧就喺南加州University of Southern California got her PhD, and then she went to the University of Minnesota to get her postdoc. Wisconsin medicine to get her postdoc in neurobiology and study the structure function of the brain. And then since then, she also worked in biotech companies like famous places like Genentech and Scios, and so she's been around and know a lot about neurosciences. So it's really a great thing for the Alzheimer's Association to be able to have her helping them now. 歐小榮博士咧就係一個好資深嘅科學研究員啦。咁然後咧佢亦都喺一啲好出名嘅公司嗰度做過工嘅。佢中山大學畢業，然後喺南加州大學嗰度攞個博士，跟住又去威斯康辛州嗰個medicine 嗰度攞到即係再做博後啦。咁即係一路都係對呢個腦部嘅研究咧係好有興趣。咁所以佢而家對呢個 Alzheimer Association 做嘢咧係真係正中下懷咯。
40 years ago, Alzheimer's disease wasn't discussed at the dinner table or in the doctor's office. But a group of people devastated by the disease came together to change that. Out of their passion, the Alzheimer's Association was born, and today is the leading organization in Alzheimer's care, support, and research. For more than 5.8 million Americans living with Alzheimer's and their more than 16 million caregivers, the association's free 24/7 helpline and website at alz.org are often a first source of information. From in-person support groups to online message boards, the Alzheimer's Association is available wherever and whenever help is needed. The Alzheimer's Association is the nonprofit with the highest impact in Alzheimer's research worldwide, behind only the Chinese and United States governments. Our investments of over $455 million in studies around the globe have uncovered new methods of diagnosis and deepened understanding about the risk factors and causes of this fatal disease. As a result of the association's vision and commitment, the scientific community is now poised to discover breakthrough methods of treatment and prevention. The Alzheimer's Association has activated a nationwide network of dedicated advocates who, together with the association, work at all levels of government to address the Alzheimer's crisis. Under the association's leadership, and with the support of champions in Congress, federal funding for Alzheimer's research has reached a historic high of $2.3 billion, and policies to enhance access to critical care planning are now in place. No other organization has the reach, the knowledge, or the understanding to defeat Alzheimer's disease, but we can't do it alone. Stand with the Alzheimer's Association today to build a world without Alzheimer's disease tomorrow. Join us.
好多謝 Diana 俾我呢個機會咧嚟同大家分享一下我哋阿茲海默症協會可以為大家提供啲咩服務。咁頭先嗰個 slide 咧就即係簡單介紹咗咁我哋即係頭先嗰個 video 咧就係有一啲 outdated 啦，就係it's outdated. We made it like a couple years ago, but the number is like already increased. We have like over 6 million people in United States have Alzheimer's disease. 咁我哋阿茲海默症協會咧就係一個非牟利嘅機構啦。咁佢最初成立嘅時候，亦都係由一啲阿茲海默症嘅家屬照顧者自己組織起嚟，互相幫助。咁當時唔係咁多，冇咁多 support 嘅。咁佢哋發現呢個病咁難，又唔係好多人知道。咁佢哋咧自己互相組織起嚟，互相幫助。咁通過呢幾十年啦，從1980年到而家差唔多30幾年、40年咧，就發展成一個全國性嘅組織。咁呢個組織咧，我哋個目的咧就係要通過即係促進呢個對於呢個病嘅研究。咁嚟希望即係加速呢個研究，揾出一個治療同埋干預嘅辦法。咁我哋亦都希望咧，就係通過我哋嘅阿茲海默症協會嘅努力，同埋大家所有嘅義工啊，一齊嚟加入我哋咧。咁我哋最終咧係可以，咁我哋係希望咧就係藉住呢個加速呢個全球嘅研究咧，嚟推動我哋點樣去明白呢個病佢嘅背後嘅機理係乜嘢希望咧推動一個早期嘅診斷同埋早期嘅發現，咁我哋可以做一啲早期嘅干預。咁另外一個咧就係我哋通過raise the awareness to lower the risk, kind of like trying to prevent this, like we cannot prevent this disease right now, but we're trying to lower the risk through education and promotion and brain health living. 咁咧，我哋可以最大限度咁對呢個prevent 呢個 disease， 然後對呢啲已經受到呢個疾病影響嘅人咧，可以提供一啲更好嘅照顧同埋支持。咁最終咧，我哋個目標咧就係希望可以終結呢個阿茲海默症同埋所有嘅失智症嘅。Alzheimer Association, we hope it's your 24/7 resource for help, information, and referral, and the opportunity to make a difference in the fight against Alzheimer's disease. We have a 24/7 helpline, and you can call us anytime, anywhere within the United States, and there's always a live person there to answer your phone. And even though if you don't speak like English, it's okay. We have an online like over 200 language in translations。咁我哋希望阿茲海默症協會咧係你嘅協助嘅資源啦。你唔論係任何時候，你需要咩資訊啊，或者係需要幫忙啊，或者係有啲人可能佢唔需要咩幫忙，佢只係真係經過一日嘅照顧呢個患者，佢可能到晚黑嘅時候靜落嚟嘅時候，好需要一個人嚟傾聽佢嘅心事，或者去抒發佢一啲 frustration， 即係咁都係可以打電話俾我哋嘅。咁你隨時都可以打電話俾我哋。我哋希望咧就係你任何時候喺任何嘅地方，喺美國任何嘅地方咧，你都可以打我哋呢個800嘅電話。呢個電話咧就係1800272390咧。咁如果你喺加州打咧，咁佢都係會 route 到去個總部咧。咁如果佢嗰個接聽電話嘅人唔可以 answer 你個 question， 佢係會 refer 到我哋local 嘅 chapter。我哋阿茲海默症協會喺美國全國有超過差唔多有80個 chapter。咁咧，咁我哋 chapter 會 follow up。咁可以即係俾啲local 嘅資源俾你，咁點樣可以幫到你嘅？ Alzheimer Association, how you can get help online? You can get it alz.org. We have a lot of information. It has like the general information about the disease, and also how we understand this disease and different kinds of dementia. And also if you are caregivers and there was some issues that you want to understand, also like a lot of the issue Mrs. Kao already mentioned, for caregivers, she have a lot of excellent tips. But if you ever have any problem, you can go on alz.org, and then you can find a lot of information. And we also have the community resource finder. That's when you need, like, if I want to get some classes, you want to know what kind of classes available, at what time, and at what language, or you want to join some support group, and we have the community resource finder. We help you to find the proper support group for you, and your location, the time. Some is like morning support group, afternoon support group, evening support group, and support group in English, in Chinese, in Spanish. You can find all these resources in the community resource finder. And if you want to place somebody in an assisted living, and you can also go on the community resource finder and enter your zip code or your address, the city, and then you can type in like what kind of help you want. You want assisted living, or you want a skilled nursing facility, or you want a home care. You want to hire some private care. There was some home care agency you can find near you. So you just type in your zip code, and it probably will, after you do a search, you probably will come up with like hundreds of agency or places you can get, and you can narrow down to it, like I want it Chinese, I want it can have a staff that speak Cantonese, or I want them to be able to provide, have a memory clinic. A lot of the assisted living, they are just general for senior people, not necessarily for patient with dementia. So you're probably looking for some facility that have memory clinic, so they will be safe. And you can also find it, so you can narrow down your search. And also we have another services that's really useful. It's called Out Connect. This is for mostly for healthcare systems. So if a doctor diagnoses somebody with dementia or mild cognitive impairment or other kinds of dementia, not necessarily Alzheimer's disease, but usually they give the diagnosis, the patient is a shock, and also they are helpless because they don't understand, they don't know what to do. And if you fill out a form, it's a referral form from your doctors, and then give the or just like sign it and give a verbal consent to let us to contact you, and then the doctor will send that form to us. Alzheimer Association, and we will call you and find out what kind of support you need. Some people just need some information about the disease, and some people want to find out how to get a lawyer to do some early planning, like financial and legal planning. And some people might have a concern about safety. 6 out of 10 Alzheimer patients will have a wandering problems. So they want how can they take some steps to prevent the person get lost. And we have that safety center. So the ALZ Connect is like we connected with the healthcare system. And then every time a doctor, if they diagnose somebody with the dementia, and they will refer us to provide that family with support. And then we have the Alzheimer Dementia Caregiver Center. So they have a lot of information and talk about a lot of things that Mrs. Kao already discussed earlier. And also we have education seminars, a lot of topics. Some is like, what is the early signs of Alzheimer's? And what's the difference of dementia and Alzheimer's? 咁你同樣係打我哋呢個1-800-272-3900嘅電話。咁咧我哋有好多嘅資訊啊、轉介啊。咁如果有啲人係有啲即係照護嘅問題啊，可以同我哋諮詢啊。咁另外我哋有即係呢個電話咧係有翻譯啦。如果你唔講英文係冇問題嘅，你可以講俾佢聽Chinese or Cantonese， 咁佢咧就會揾到呢個線上嘅翻譯，咁嚟同你傾。咁另外一個咧，我哋有好多個講座啦，中文嘅講座啊，同埋 support group 啊，然後我哋有一啲講座咧係專門為照顧者設計嘅，就係譬如為照顧者一啲訓練嘅課程，譬如喺早期階段你要注意啲乜嘢，咁喺中期嘅時候你要注意啲乜嘢。咁後期嘅時候你應該注意啲乜嘢？咁有一啲咧係classes 咧係講喺唔同嘅階段咧，你點樣去同呢個病人進行溝通？因為隨住佢個病情嘅發展咧，佢啲語言嘅溝通咧已經做唔得到啦嚇。佢可能係通過一啲行為啊，或者係一啲表情啊，或者係一啲手勢啊咁嚟同你溝通，咁呢個時候喺唔同嘅階段，你點樣去用唔同嘅手段嚟同佢溝通咧？或者係當佢有一啲行為嘅問題，你要明白佢行為背後嘅原因，咁咧點樣去應對一啲行為嘅問題？咁所以咧，我哋有好多呢啲線上嘅教育課程啊，同埋一啲講座啊咁樣。咁另外一個咧，我頭先有提到，我哋有ALZ Connect 就係呢個同你醫生同你診斷咗有呢個病之後咧，可以聯絡我哋咧就會contact 你，睇下你需要啲咩幫忙。咁咧Community Resource Finder 咧就係大家都可以上網去揾嘅，即係你想要睇下我哋有啲咩課程 offer 啊，或者係你想揾一啲轉介啊，因為有啲人可能即係喺屋企照顧壓力太大，可能佢想揾一個 home care helper。咁我哋有個agent， 你可以 search 呢個 home care agency， 或者係你想去送出去 assisted living， 咁亦可以選。咁咧你就係我哋有相當多嘅呢啲 resource 網上嘅。咁咧仲有一個 support group 咧就係非常之有用啦。就係我哋有中文嘅普通話嘅 support group， 亦有廣東話嘅 support group， 亦有英文嘅 support group。你喺Community Resource Finder 嗰度咧，你都係可以揾到唔同 language 嘅 support group， 喺唔同嘅時間。有啲譬如係上午嘅 support group， 有啲人可能佢要返工嘅，咁晚黑嘅 support group， 咁你都可以揾得到。咁我哋嗰啲講座咧就包括中文啊、西班牙文啊、英文啊。仲有一啲特別嘅係對呢個 LGBTQ 嘅community 嘅一啲即係專門一啲嘅手冊啊，咁樣都係有嘅。咁我哋阿茲海默症協會，如果你係想參與嘅，即係我哋係希望更多嘅人知道我哋阿茲海默症協會可以提供所有呢啲咁嘅幫助。We want everybody knows what we offer, what kind of service we offer from Alzheimer Association, and we also want to build a dementia friendly community. So we want everybody to know about this disease. So like if somebody spots somebody like walking like lost, or they walking in like in the entrance and enter this freeway, and we know this person probably have dementia. Or you spot somebody in the store and they take something out and without paying they leave the store. They are not trying to steal something. These people, they probably just have dementia and they forgot they had to pay. So in order to build a dementia-friendly society, we want to raise the awareness. Everybody should know about this disease, and so they can provide help. So we have like each year we have Walk to End Alzheimer's. A lot of people join this one. This one is not just for fundraising. It's mostly for raise awareness. So like everybody will know about this disease. And we also want people to participate so they can be volunteering, and they help us to reach out to other community. Like we try our best to let people know about this disease or how to get a healthy living, to lower your risk to get the disease. But there's a lot of people we haven't been able to reach. So we want volunteers to help us. And we also want the government to have more funding for the research. So we will be able to find a treatment or a way of intervention for this. So we want the government to increase funding. Like in the past 10 years, because our advocacy efforts, the federal funding for Alzheimer and related dementia research funding has increased like almost 8 times, from less to 500 million to now it's like 3.5 billion this year. We also want people to be able to participate in research or clinical trial. So one of the major obstacles that about that we are not able to find a treatment is not just funding. Also not enough people to participate in clinical trial. And also we like to have our representative in the research, because if no Chinese participate in the research, in the future we find a treatment, that treatment may not be, good for the Chinese. Maybe they're just good for the Caucasian, for those people participate the trials. 咁我哋講咧，我哋阿茲海默症協會咧係有好多嘅 effort 嚟，即係讓大家知道呢個病，咁然後咧我哋可以點樣更好咁幫助受到呢個病影響嘅人。咁我哋有希望大家可以做我哋嘅 volunteer 啦，或者係通過參加我哋呢個 advocacy， 即係倡導嘅 effort 咧，係增加呢個政府對呢方面嘅撥款啦。我哋亦希望咧通過呢個 Walk to End Alzheimer 啊，或者係The Longest Day 啊呢啲活動咧，就讓大家知道即係呢個病因為你參加呢啲活動係唔需要咧註冊咧係唔需要俾錢嘅，係 free 嘅 ，totally free 嘅。咁另外一個咧就係希望大家多啲參與我哋嘅呢個臨床嘅研究啦。咁我哋臨床研究咧就係好多嘅研究項目咧就係冇足夠嘅人肯參加，特別係啲少數族裔大部分參加啲臨床研究嘅咧，目前嚟講咧都係白人居多啦。咁如果冇我哋呢啲少數族裔嘅參與咧，咁第日萬一佢哋揾到一個方法點樣可以預防啊，或者係降低你個風險啊，或者係治療干預啊，咁呢個咧唔一定適用於我哋華人嘅，因為你都冇參加呢個試驗，所以我哋係鼓勵大家咧多啲嚟參與。咁因為時間嘅關係咧，咁我今日就講到呢度。咁大家有任何問題咧，就係可以留低落嚟繼續提問啦，又或者係隨時同我哋聯絡。咁我哋阿茲海默症協會嘅呢個宗旨咧，就係希望最後我哋係有一個冇呢個阿茲海默症同其他所有失智症嘅世界。Our vision is a world without Alzheimer's disease and all other dementia. So the take-home message is remember our 800 number. You can call us anytime. 1-800-272-3900 1-800-272-3900呢個電話咧係希望大家係記住嘅，你可以貼喺你個冰箱度，隨時俾電話我哋。 多謝。
Thank you so much, Xiaorong。多謝歐博士同我哋講呢個阿茲海默症協會嘅咁多嘅資源同埋可以幫助，亦都係你哋真係好需要大家嘅參與嚇。So thank you so much. I like especially the vision that we will in the future be living in a world without dementia or Alzheimer's disease. That's great. 以後係如果呢個世界可以冇呢個失智症或者係阿茲海默氏症嘅，咁樣就係最好噶啦。咁而家咧又到咗我哋嘅問答時間啦。咁咧就我哋嘅 panelist 係咪喺翻度啊 ？Gwen?
Yep.
Okay, great. So the first question is, how do caregivers coerce the patients to have his or her meals? 點樣可以氹到佢食嘢？
你自己都係啦，佢個人咧到時食飯嗰時又唔係太多餓，咁所以逼住佢食嘅啦。你記得小朋友嗰時好多次咧都唔清食咁佢冇咗一個 meal 幾次都好，你去睇醫生咧，佢就話得噶咯，唔好食幾餐咧冇問題嘅，你咪俾咗 snacks in between 咯，and eventually 咧佢 his appetite comes back, so don't worry so much. You can cook some of it. 係咁扭下佢食啦，話好食喎，你遲啲食啦咁都唔緊要噶啦。So it's okay, you know. Miss a meal or two. When they miss more meals, then you have to worry. Okay, like your kids, you know, they will miss for 2 or 3 days and they still won't eat. Anyway, give them snacks.
No, don't worry about the real meal if they miss the meal. I don't want to have dinner with you or lunch with you.
And also, you know, when you're talking to babies, do they answer you? But you still carry on talking to them, so still engage them in a conversation, but make it simple. Nothing that you want to give him, that he has to choose something or other, or has to give an answer to him, but talk to him about what you did, things that you think, and please don't talk to them and say, do you remember? That's a word that you should avoid, because then they immediately feel challenged that they can't remember. So make it simple. It's like talking to babies. Next question.
Be kind, right? So how you caregiver or family member get the patient to be engaged in a conversation? 你點樣同佢講嘢？佢唔睬你嗰陣時。
係都唔睬你嘅啦，好似 baby 啦，佢先睬你咪睬你啦，佢先睬你咪哈哈哈咁笑下，咁要同你玩下你啲頭髮，又乜咁 ，that's engaging. I mean, you don't expect a baby to actually reply to your conversations, and so just remember that they may have limited vocabulary by some stage, and they don't want to talk.
So it's really about changing expectations, right? They are not good. They may not be eating every meal. They may not be, answering you or engaging in a conversation with you when you talk to them. They are not quite normal, right? So we have to come to the realization that we don't have the normal expectation for the Alzheimer's patients, and then we only get frustrated and worried for nothing, right?
But do talk to them.
But even if they don't respond to us, we should just keep talking, like we're talking to a baby. And the baby can't talk yet, so we'll just keep talking and make sounds with them and treat them like, they are a member of the family regardless, right? Even if they don't answer.
Okay.
我哋知道咧，
so on.
我哋知道咧，失智症嘅病人隨住佢個病情嘅發展咧，佢個味覺係會退化嘅。咁所以你平時煮嘢俾佢食咧，咁佢可能就真係覺得冇味啦。即係你認為好夠味啦，但係佢會覺得冇味嘅。咁可能你要除咗即係味道方面，你將佢啲顏色整得即係好睇啲啊。另外食飯嘅時候唔好俾太多嘅 choice， 即係你擺滿成張台嘅食物咧，反而佢覺得無所適從啦。你就係簡單嘅你想去食嘅嘢咧，就擺喺佢前邊，一樣兩樣就 OK 啦。即係越簡單越好。你反而太多嘅 choice 咧，咁佢就唔知道選邊樣好啦，即係選擇嘅困難咁樣嘅。
其實呢個味覺嘅問題 the taste buds is not unique to Alzheimer's patients. It's almost like an aging phenomenon, right? As we get old, the taste buds don't work as well.
你其實你要做得好味啲，唔一定係要加鹽啊加糖，我哋話呢啲唔係咁健康，有時係一啲 herb 有啲香料啊，咁都係，或者係啲我哋講色香味啦，即係你睇落去好似好即係顏色好好咁，然後又有香味，咁就可以吸引到佢咯。
用啲顏色啊咁補救下嚇。不同顏色嘅蔬菜。
最緊要係要鑊氣。
Yeah. Okay. So here's another question. When patients always are suspicious, say something negative or even create a fake story saying that someone stole their stuff, how do you address that?
Well, seniors, you have to take it seriously in a way. You know that maybe it's not true because we have lots of questions about that in Hong Kong because we have maids, living maids, and they often accuse the maids of stealing it. And as you know, they're very forgetful. They can't find their things. The first reaction will be, let me help you find it. But you also have to be afraid that someone is scamming them. So, you do have to, there's a lot of scamming of elderly in Hong Kong, actually. They somehow sort of saying, well, I won't go into all the different stories of scamming, but they are easily scammed because elderly, especially Alzheimer's, can be too trusting. The maid can tell them to go to the bank and get something too, and they will, if you've got a bad maid. So, when they accuse the maid could be stealing or not be stealing, and they're not going to admit it if they are. So you have to know the situation, actually, so don't be too casual about it. But start off by saying, you can't find it, let me help you find it. Work on from there and judge for yourself.
So, 即係我哋正話就係有人問話如果係啲病人咧，有時話哎呀佢即係講嘢好負氣啦，或者係可能話講啲嘢話有人偷嘢，咁成日都話有人偷嘢嘅，但係因為係可能佢自己唔記得擺啦。但係咧 Gwen 咧就話可能其實都係可能有啲喺屋企幫手嘅人咧，可能即係可能係呢啲老人家咯。氹佢哋去銀行攞錢啊，咁呢啲故事都層出不窮噶啦，咁所以咧就都係要審慎對待呢件事，要查真啲，即係要去揾下係咪真係唔見咗咧？抑或係俾人偷咗咧？即係啲咩情況都可能有出現嘅嚇。咁就另外一條問題咧就係問牛肉同羊肉啊 ，Is lamb healthier than beef or pork？羊肉係咪比較牛肉同埋 pork healthier? Lamb is healthier?
I don't think anything of them is healthier than the other. It's the oil that makes them unhealthy. And lamb does have a lot of oil. If you can buy 好瘦啲羊肉咁，瘦啲嘅魚脂腍啲嘅都冇問題啦。不過你要隔多啲油嘅真嘅，好多油㗎。
It's the animal fat problem, right?
Yeah.
嗰啲動物嘅脂肪，所以即係我哋知道咧，總之係紅色嘅肉啦，唔理係牛羊豬啦，係咪？即係紅色嘅肉咧，都係唔係冇咁健康噶啦。雞啊、魚啊嗰啲比較好啲。咁尤其是你如果係食嗰啲牛羊豬嗰啲肉咧，如果係肥嘅啦，咁嗰啲肥膏啦就會影響嗰啲血管啦。So is yogurt something suitable for seniors? Yogurt?
It's good for your gut bacteria, but don't overdo it because for some people who are allergic or something like that, have allergies towards it. You still something, sometimes it's bad for them. A little bit's okay.
I was just eating a yogurt for lunch today. So 即係嗰啲酸乳酪啊，係咪對嗰啲老人家好咧？咁佢酸乳酪佢就係酸酸地咁，然後好似雪糕咁，但係就唔係咁甜，咁但係就即係容易入口咯。咁就唔使嚼嘅，入咗口就可以吞噶啦。咁咧營養就非常之豐富嘅，但係因為佢有啲細菌啊嗰啲喺度嚟到發酵咁啊，咁咧所以咧就有啲人咧就唔受得嘅啲腸胃。咁你自己睇下咯，如果係食得到冇肚屙嘅，咁你咪可以食咯。營養都相當豐富下嘅，不過有啲都好甜嘅，所以都要留意啲嘅，即係唔好食咁多啦。總之就係咩都係唔好食咁多。即係少少地樣都試下，咁就最好，有一個均勻嘅飲食嚇。How do you deal with seniors that don't want to eat healthy? Like they prefer to eat deep fried sesame balls instead of supper? 想食嗰啲炸芝麻球啊！ instead of regular dinner.
俾你講啊。
其實就係佢會睇你擠啲乜嘢食物喺佢前邊，如果佢見唔到或者佢就唔會記得有呢樣食物。所以你如果真係你買嘢翻嚟嘅時候，你買啲比較健康嘅，咁佢揾冰箱啊揾嚟揾去都係呢啲健康嘅食物，咁佢就唔會有一啲唔好嘅 choice 啦。
我講你古仔咯，我好中意食煎堆嘅。冇得食咁，我要是咧喺街市嗰度睇到咧，佢即刻買啲咯。咁女咧食過都唔緊要啦，好食噶。
So again, it's like only once in a while, right? Once in a while is okay, but not all the time.
係啦，咁我哋要記得，即係隨住佢個病情越嚟越嚴重嘅時候咧，佢會有咗呢個吞咽嘅困難。咁所以咧就你可以去買一啲thickener。即係將佢啲即係唔好俾啲液體去飲啊，咁佢容易濁親，咁就通過一啲 thickener 咧可以 make it thicker， 咁就冇咁容易濁親。
So what Gwen was saying earlier in her talk was a really, really important point, because anatomically, and some of you don't know, is that when you tilt your head back, like looking up to somebody who's standing next to you to feed you,when you go like that, there is a cover. So the two pipes is the esophagus and the airway, and they're right next to each other. And there's a cover to cover the airway when you're swallowing. But when you tip your head back, when the head is tipped back, the cover is open for both pipes. So then if you feed some liquid to the person and he swallows,it's very easy to go down the wrong pipe. And that's what Xiaorong is trying to bring out, that to thicken the liquid so that it doesn't slip into the other pipe so easily, they go to the right pipe. But really the important point also is the position of the head. If you tip the head, like the head is tipped down, then the cover goes to the airway. So the airway is covered up when you swallow.And so it's really important about the position of when you feed the patient. Don't make them look up at you. Make their head tip down. So the airway is closed. And so the food would not go into the airway, because that's going to cause pneumonia. And that's one of the most common things that happens to these people. And then the healthcare takers will stop feeding them because they got pneumonia. Now they can't eat because they have to be treated.So 我即係呢個食嘢嘅姿態啊，即係唔好叫佢臥起個頭咁樣食，一定係要耷低個頭。耷低個頭嘅時候咧，嗰個我哋嗰兩條管啊，食道同埋嗰個氣管啊，佢咧就有個蓋冚住個氣管嘅。當你耷低個頭咧，個蓋咧就會閂埋冚住個氣管，咁咧就唔會將啲食物咧就吞錯喉。我哋所謂叫吞錯喉，吞咗落個氣管嗰度，吞咗落氣管咧就好大劑啦。佢咧就會氣管入咗嗰啲食物入咗個肺咧就會有肺炎啦。咁咧就老人家嚟講啦，有肺炎咧係非常之大忌嘅。So anyway, so this is a good point. 咁正話 Xiaorong 咧就話，將啲嘢咧唔好咁稀啊。So we thought that liquid is liquid, right? No. So 如果你係飲一啲清嘅湯咧，嗰啲咧就好稀嘅。但係如果你將佢變咗做一啲，譬如係咩啊？譬如 yogurt 咁啦嚇，咁嗰啲佢都係入咗口都好似 liquid 咁噶啦。但係咧佢咧就結好多嘅，咁咧就冇咁容易吞菜口嘅。稀嗰啲嘢好容易吞菜口嘅，因為佢吞得太快啊，嗰啲流質嘅嘢太過容易吞啊。So that's about eating. It's really just an important point that people don't realize. So I was so glad when Glenn was talking about the positioning of the head.So 仲有咩補充啊 ？Anything else to add to that about food and how liquid?
You got a question? Yeah.
There's another question, which is why do they hit people? 點解打人？啲病人去打人。
我哋專門有呢啲課程咧，係即係教啲照顧者understanding 嘅那個 behavior， dementia-related behaviour 同埋點樣去應對嘅。咁其實我哋講所有嘅行為都係有原因嘅，只不過我哋未揾出佢背後嘅原因。咁你可以從佢以前嘅生活習慣嚟揾出佢嘅原因。我俾一個例子你就係以前有個醫生同我哋分享咧，就係有一個病人啦，佢喺 assisted living， 咁佢每日到黃昏嗰時候咧，都大發脾氣打人啊，嗰啲工作人員咧都冇辦法，即係將佢 calm down， 然後要將佢綁住咁關埋喺一個房度嘅。咁後來咧，佢慢慢同呢個佢哋嘅家人溝通咧，就發覺原來呢個病人佢以前未有病之前咧係個即係做生意嘅。咁佢每次出差，佢一定係到黃昏嗰時候會打電話翻屋企同佢太太傾偈。咁佢就嘗試咧，就喺當佢發脾氣嘅時候咧，就俾一個電話佢，咁就完全將佢 calm down 啦。咁就係我哋講所有嘅行為咧，都係佢一種溝通嘅方式。你只不過要揾出佢後邊背後嘅原因。咁可能你一次唔會成功啦，你可能要嘗試好多次，你要試下究竟佢係想啲乜嘢。咁如果佢嘅行為會係危害到佢身邊嘅人嘅安全啊，或者喺佢自己嘅安全咧，咁你係需要即係採取措施啊，譬如將啲佢嗰啲啲兜啊、啲刀啊、啲錘啊、鉸剪啊嗰啲攞開佢。咁如果佢嗰啲行為係唔會傷到人嘅咧，其實就唔應該，你係無需去制止佢嘅。咁所以你要根據情況嚟即係點樣去應對。如果大家有興趣咧，亦都可以係報名參加我哋一啲課程嘅。
報名係點報名啊 Xiaorong？
我哋或者我喺個 chat 嗰度，我將嗰個 link
電話落嚟啦。
我將嗰個 link 發俾大家。你等一等下，我揾一揾。
So this is Xiaorong talking about from the Alzheimer's Association that there are classes and trainings to deal with behavioral problems. And basically what it is that you don't look at the behavior itself. You have to go one layer deeper and try to find out what is causing this behavior to come out. And once you find that, and the situation could be handled much, much better. So and each patient is very different. You know, he could be hitting people or they could be hitting people, but each person would have a different story behind it. And that awaits to be discovered by the caregiver. And so hopefully it's the family member who knows the patient well, and so then they can try to figure things out, why, what it means, and all that is easier thing. So anyways, Xiaorong's going to give you the information in the chat box. And the chat box has a lot of links and information in it. So make sure that you take a picture of that so that you can use the information. It's too much to copy, so you can just take a picture. How come seniors like to hoard or make a lot of clutter? Is this normal?
It's not happen to all, but some people do have this habit. Yeah.
It's not normal, I can tell you. The hoarders are not normal. There's some kind of psychological illness.
Well, it's also memories. They don't want to throw away their memories. They're forgetting so much too.
To them, it's treasure, right?
佢可能有啲搞唔清佢現實嘅情況，或者佢譬如佢細個長大嘅時候生活條件唔係咁好，所以好多嘢佢覺得以後有用嘅佢都會擠埋存翻起嚟，即係第日可以用得上。咁佢到佢有失智嘅時候，或者佢即係覺得睇到樣樣都係有用嘅咁佢會即係佢會收埋。咁同每個人嘅經歷唔一樣咯。
所以我諗都係而家未有失智嘅時候，將啲嘢冇用嘅真係抌晒佢先。失智咗嘅時候可能唔捨得抌。I'm just joking. So anyways, I think that's all the questions now. I actually have some questions for Gwen. I want to ask you about stigma. 呢個俾人歧視啲嘢。So I mean, Professor Kao is actually a very special case, of course, because he was a Nobel laureate. So did you experience any stigma with him getting the disease, or that to you is not an issue at all?
Yes and no. I think at the stage that 我哋喺香港嗰時咧係2011啦，嗰時咧no one 咧明白呢個腦退化症啦，咁個都係擺佢屋企傻咗啦咁咯，咁 there's a lot of stigma 咯，咁以為你係窮，又冇讀過書，係你哋壞人咁先要呢個嘢咯，我好多 negative feelings 嘅咯咁，不過咧高教授又讀咗咁多書，又做校長，咁佢又唔可以冇 respect for him 啦，所以咁咪 gradually don't know that anyone 我要講嗰時話 anyone can get it， 咁你要錢要可以要呢個證 ，actually 好多以前啦 ，before I arrived in Hong Kong in 2011，有好多有錢嘅咧，佢啲爸爸媽媽都要呢個證，不過佢擺喺屋企呢，雖然冇人知道啦話有錢咁好，佢都係要呢個證嘅話咁咯，所以呢 after we arrived， 佢睇下佢話佢讀咗咁多書就係。佢用咗佢個腦太多咩？咁咯 ，then we started， 佢哋成立咗我哋嘅高錕基金，咁去知我哋嗰個早幾年咧嗰時咧，我哋去嗰啲草根嗰啲 housing estates 講好多，同嗰啲婆婆話係點解 explanation of what Alzheimer's is。所以慢慢正嚟呢啲人咪覺得佢係 the poster boy for Alzheimer 咯，邊個人都可以攞咯，要呢個證啦。So that's how in the last 10 years 咧，而家香港咧個人都了解呢個腦退化啦，個人去知道嗰時驚地咯，要人同佢講話，佢前年要 cancer 唔愛呢個證，個 cancer 都好慘㗎啦，所以咧仲未好明白咯。我諗不過而家咧就多啲人了解咯，冇呢啲stigma， 咁又冇話避咗呢個人話咁都個 still is Hong Kong is how we say 香港人咧對啲殘忍啊，仲要 disabled 啊，仲要嗰啲with mental problems 都係好negative 嘅，雖然咧there's still negative things about Alzheimer's, but 越嚟越少咯。
I have to say that, yeah, your Alzheimer's Foundation, Dr. Charles Kao and you, Mrs. Kao, have done so much good work. It's not just that he discovered the optic fibers. That is, of course, remarkable. It's very remarkable. But the fact that he got the Alzheimer's disease and doesn't mind to be a poster boy, and, like you said, so many rich people that the family member might got Alzheimer's or some psychiatric illness, and they hide themselves, and they just are so ashamed, and there's so much stigma from their friends about this type of illnesses that they can't face it, so they hide the disease. So it takes a lot of courage, really, I think, for Dr. Kao to come out and you to support him. And so this Alzheimer's Foundation in Hong Kong is just tremendously just wonderful. I think that it is something that we cannot do here because it has to be dealing with the society in Hong Kong, and it has to be somebody from Hong Kong who handles it, so that they can see examples. And Professor Kao's example, and to stand up and to form the foundation and let people know that, hey, smart guys like me also can get Alzheimer's. So it doesn't mean that you have to be stupid or low class or poor to have it, so it's not differentiated by those kind of socio-economic criteria. That is just so great, right? And so we still deal with it here even in the United States, but probably to a lesser degree, because here people are a little bit more open-minded, I think. I could be wrong. 即係我嘅意思咧就話，即係高錕教授咧，同埋高錕夫人咧，兩個一齊企出嚟去做呢個高錕慈善基金啊，係一個非常非常出色嘅行為嚟嘅。因為佢高錕教授唔止係叻去發明咗呢個光纖啦，但係佢直至到佢有病，佢都用以身作則企出嚟話，係啊，我有呢個病啊，唔使驚噶，係我呢啲咁叻嘅人都有呢啲咁嘅病噶。So and then of course 高錕夫人亦都可以即係好幫佢渡過呢個好艱難嘅過程啦。咁但係 即係因為有佢哋咁樣以身作則咁樣企出嚟咧，咁就將香港個社會嗰啲人對呢個疾病嘅認識第一增加，第二亦都係冇咁歧視咯。我覺得你哋係做咗好大嘅功夫喺呢度 ，and that I think that deserve a second Nobel Prize for it. It's so great. It's such great work.
你就喺美國嗰度都要個人係咁啦。如果佢冇出聲咧，你美國人都係仲係咁樣，冇人仍係要呢個症咧。Ronald Reagan 1999年好似佢喺電視嗰度講出嚟，我都有話咁咯。嗰時到啦嗰個時代咧，喺美國啲人都係冇人講呢個症啦。Same thing, he did it, 20 years, 10 years earlier.
So Ronald Reagan is a great president, I think. To me, he is. So and I'm so glad that you brought him up. But it's again, we are not just dealing with the disease itself and whether it's curable or not curable or what, right? But it's a psychological stigma that also puts another layer, another barrier. Because when people are shy about it, they don't talk out. They won't go out and seek help when there's help out there. So like the Alzheimer's Foundation, right? Association, right? It's got tons of outreach activities and help for patients and caregivers. But if they are ashamed of it and there's so much stigma they feel about the disease, they are not going to come out and say, hey, my so-and-so has Alzheimer's and then they get help, right?
I think we also need to change the name, like still a lot of the Chinese that call this 老人痴呆啊。
老人痴呆係
呢個病其實呢個名其實係有啲貶義嘅，而且亦都唔準確，所以我哋希望大家都唔好用呢個名啦。
係啊，以後都唔好用。
因為大家有糖尿病啊、心臟病好似冇咩唔好意思講出嚟，但係如果有老年痴呆咧，好多人都係唔想講俾人哋聽，屋企人有呢個病。咁希望大家以後譬如喺香港叫腦退化症啦，咁我哋呢度講老人失智症啊，或者係阿茲海默症啊，咁都 OK 嘅。咁最好咧就唔好再講係呢個老年痴呆啦。
老人痴呆症係啊，唔好再用呢個字，唔好叫人痴呆呆。
我哋香港嘅新名啦，而家佢哋草根句人咧，唔係醫生啦，醫生就唔中意我哋嘅名，佢話腦退化咯。不過醫生就唔中意，因為佢腦退化嚟 covers everything， vascular dementia 乜咁，佢仲要話認知症咁咯，認知症係 Alzheimer， 所以多數人咧話腦退化。腦退化啦，腦退化都冇咁慘。
佢有啲好多時候呢啲咁嘅病，佢唔係能夠咁準確咁診斷究竟係咩原因，但係佢哋呢度都係degenerative disease， 即係一個神經退化性嘅呢個疾病。咁所以佢就講腦退化症都 OK 嘅。
Yeah. So very good points. Thank you so much for both speakers. So I am going to we're over time again as usual. Just want to give you guys a special thank, and I wish I am there with you guys and give you a big hug for all your wonderful work. With both Alzheimer's Foundations Association, and it's just wonderful. And thank you so much, TI, for helping to make this happen. And then, of course, in the background, helping us, Clifford, Sandy, and Raymond. And so without their strong support, we really cannot have this kind of a town hall. And it's really getting so late, right? But of course, I want to thank all of you for joining us today. And it's getting late, but many of you are still staying with us, although some have left, which I understand they get hungry, right? But so thank you so very much, and I hope that you enjoy the town hall today, and that you will learn some tips and able to understand the disease a little better. 咁啊，多謝你各位參加啦 ，Thank you so much again, and I appreciate your staying with us. 咁啊，多謝啦，又多謝多一次，多謝大家，同埋多謝 Gwen and TI and Xiaorong and our staff, right? Thank you. Good night. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.